So I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
That was Vice President Kamala Harris delivering another tongue twister of a speech on her first official stop on the 2024 campaign trail. According to new reporting from Axios, members of President Biden's team are rushing to Kamala Harris's side in a push to repair her image before the 2024 election season shifts into high gear. They believe Harris's poor poll numbers and apparent unpopularity mean she could sink the ticket.
A new Fox News poll shows that Democratic presidential candidates Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson enjoy small gains over President Biden. Of potential primary voters, 62% said they'd vote for Biden, 19% for RFK Jr., and 9% for Williamson. So that's up just over a few days ago when last there was polling on their numbers. Maybe he did get a bump from his announcement last week, which didn't get very much mainstream media attention whatsoever, but he was on Tucker. He was one of the last guests on Tucker Carlson's show. It goes to, I think, the enduring uncertainty many Democrats still have about President Biden, and maybe there's more certainty about Kamala Harris, just not a positive certainty.
No. So Kamala Harris's popularity numbers are somehow worse than Biden's. Remember, 70% of voters don't want Joe Biden to run again. Majorities of Democrats and Republicans alike don't want Joe Biden to run again. They also don't want Donald Trump to win. Nobody's looking forward to this rehash of 2020, it seems. But Kamala Harris, because she's even more behind, is now being looked at as a way to kind of tune up and judge Biden's numbers. They don't want her to drag down the ticket. But when you look at speeches like that, what's important, Robby, is in this moment,
Briahna,
to understand the context of the space that we're in at the table and the chairs with the people around us who understand ephemerally.
I'm in. You sell this so much better than she does. I'm in.
I mean, come on. Look, she's not responsible for a bunch of terrible policy decisions, at least in the White House, the way that Biden is. There are a lot of other worse actors out there to be mad at. But just from a pure political skill perspective, I kind of wish they would take her off the ticket for just kind of put her out of her misery, let her live her best life, go do something that she's clearly better equipped at, because this starts to feel like torture.
Yeah. I think it's obvious that if they could diplomatically, without causing any headaches additionally for themselves, they would get rid of her. The problem is she will not go quietly into the night.
Are you sure about that? She doesn't strike me as someone who is enjoying her role.
But she wants to be the next president.
Why?
Well, that goes to a psychological, religious motivation. Well,
she was a senator. That's pretty good.
No one turns down the chance to be president, a significant chance.
I would argue
even
that
if the odds are she's likely to be.
If she thinks that she's going to have an uncontested run to the White House, maybe
she's not going to have it uncontested, but she's going to have a.
She thinks that she might.
She's going to have somewhere between a 20 and 40% chance of getting the nomination, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something a little bit more macabre. Because I was listening
No, I'm thinking about 2028.
I was listening to, I think, the New York Times podcast, The Daily, and they were opining on whether or not there were some risks presented to Democrats if they can't rehab Kamala Harris, if, God forbid, Joe Biden isn't able to continue in his duties and Kamala becomes the president, what does that do to their electoral chances? It seems like that would be a really bad outcome for Democrats.
But if they try to make her leave, she's going to throw a tantrum publicly. There's going to be so many negative headlines about this Look, it would be dramatic, it'd be fun to watch, it'd be entertaining, but it would not at all benefit Biden to have tons and tons about, oh, you don't have confidence in your own team, but it would be a feeding frenzy for the press. The press, which finds this whole thing boring because Biden is boring and there's not enough scandal and there's not enough intrigue. This would be intrigue. This would be covered like Hillary Clinton's email scandal times 1,000 because there's nothing else to do.
But what's this? This might be my own projection, but Kamala Harris just doesn't. She doesn't seem like she's enjoying it. She's not presenting herself as someone who wants to be president. There were all these moments.
She's waiting her turn.
She's no Dick Cheney. You know, there's not some sense that she's waiting in the wings, that she is puppeteering this, that she has a lot of engagement and ideas. But in 2028,
she's going to get her turn.
And she's also no Mike Pence, who seemed to simmer kind of quietly frustrated that Trump was so unorthodox with respect to his language and his religious views and his relationships with women and all of these kinds of things. Kamala Harris.
But that's a great. Yeah.
I can imagine a world in which Kamala Harris.
I cannot.
Accepts a deal.
I can't imagine such a world for any person. All these political figures,
miserable.
they want to be president.
She looks very unhappy and worried.
Pence, he was hanging on because he wanted to be the next guy, and up until January 6th,
when they wanted him to literally
that was a calculation that was made from political savvy that he would have a good chance to be a future Republican nominee. Right. Then it all came apart. But
I'm saying
until that point,
I don't see that as for Kamala Harris. I don't see her posturing herself in that same way. I agree with Mike Pence. I don't see it with Kamala Harris. I could be wrong. There was some talk about her doing events with Pete Buttigieg as though maybe his perceived political acumen would rub off on her, but of course he's in the doghouse as well over the handling of East Palestine and the rail crash there. They say they've given her better issues. She's now focusing on abortion as opposed to the border crisis, which was like a loser for anybody involved because immigration is affected so much by what's happening in other countries.
Some real popular Democrats y'all have in the mix, her and Mayor Pete and...
It's a mess, which is why we should turn probably back to the poll of the Democratic incumbents. Of course, the Democratic Party has said there's not going to be a primary, a debate. I mean, they're kind of saying that there's not going to be a primary period. They've reordered the order of the primary states to put South Carolina up in the order, a state that is very advantageous to Joe Biden, that he has a lock on. But 19% for RFK a week out from his announcement. Marianne went up from, I think she was 5% in the earlier poll to 9% now.
That was the rising bump. She was on rising.
Rising bump. You know, she's been doing a lot of media, kind of like maybe like a Pete Buttigieg style strategy. Remember, Liz Smith, his comms person, had him basically do everything in 2019, 2018. He came out of nowhere. You would see him on the cover of every, the kind of Washingtonian style magazines you see sitting around this city. He was on everybody's podcast. He just got his face out there. And, it's been undercovered, but Marianne Williamson has had a lot of success in untraditional media markets, like on TikTok rather. And it'll be interesting to see if those popularity numbers continue to rise.
Yeah, it is very interesting to see. Well, Kennedy reacted to Dr. Anthony Fauci's recent comments on his handling of the pandemic, tweeting, quote, "It is dawning on mainstream figures like Anthony Fauci that their COVID policies were a public health disaster. Lots of us are angry about the mandates, the lockdowns, the censorship, the insanity, but we need to avoid the toxic quagmire of retribution and blame and focus on ensuring this never happens again. Clean up the regulatory agencies, get corporate money out of public health, and guarantee free, open, uncensored public and scientific discourse." That's a pretty disciplined message on all of these things, honestly. Many people share a lot of those frustrations. And also I thought it was smart, and Kim Iverson, our former co-host, mentioned this on Twitter. She said she was pointing to RFK Jr. saying that, he's friends with Joe Biden, he likes him, but here are my disagreements with him. And she was saying, that is smart because people can like the friendliness and want to bring down the division and bitterness, but still have very important debates about policy without it being so doom and gloom all the time. I think Republicans are succumbing too much to doom and gloom
That's
sometimes.
interesting because I saw a lot of leftists reacting to that. Leftists who were otherwise very sympathetic to him saying, I'm tired of hearing I'm friends with X, Y, and Z. They hated it when Bernie said, I'm friends with Biden, I like Biden, he's a good guy. And I think there's some real danger to that because basically you're framing yourself as an outsider, but you're friends with the President of the United States, you like the President of the United States. People want a fighter, I think. It's not about being unnecessarily hateful or personal or anything like that in your attacks, but people want someone who's going to bring the level of fight and have an allegiance to the people, not someone they happen to have a personal relationship because they've all been rich people in politics in Washington for their entire lives. Why are you friends with Biden? Why do we not have a presidential candidate that's never met Biden? I would love someone who's never been in the same room as Biden.
His last name is Kennedy.
Well, right. I mean, and that's the hang up. And that's why I think some leftists.
I don't think that's it. Well, maybe for leftists.
Well, some leftists are skeptical of a Kennedy really being able to bring that outsider energy. It's a mixed bag. I think that a lot of people want to believe, but when you say something like, I'm friends with Joe Biden, I like Joe Biden, why? You like the person that wrote the crime bill that put my family in jail? You like the person who eulogized a segregationist? You like the person who's been accused of all of these Me Too instances? You like the person who's funding a blank check for Ukraine? Why? Because they were nice to you at a social gathering? Because they pet a dog on the head kindly?
I don't have
why is that even relevant?
I don't have a horse in this race. Maybe you're right. My instinct is that I'm sure that is something that I know, in fact, that's something that matters a lot to a certain segment of the left. I've heard the perspective you're voicing be voiced before. I don't know if a more kind of independent, left's probably the wrong way to describe it, a kind of independent populist view. I don't know that they feel that same way, but I have no idea, and I'm not interested in promoting it one way or the other. I don't
Check out this
care,
comparison. I never heard Bernie Sanders say, I like Hillary Clinton in 2016. Mm-hmm. He did say, let's lay off the talk about the emails. I don't want to get personal, yada, yada, yada.
Well, maybe he genuinely didn't like her.
Right, and he ran a better race against her. He was fiercer against her. He called out the contrast better against her because he didn't like her. I think saying you like the person is basically kind of an acknowledgement that you might bend the knee when it comes time.
I think that just reflected the fact that Hillary Clinton was not well liked and Joe Biden was, which is why he won and she didn't. But I don't know. I don't know. Let us know. Again, I'm not trying to advance any kind of softness toward Joe Biden here. Do you want our political figures or people making policy to generally get along and like each other?
Well, no, they can get along, but extemporaneously saying, hey, I like the person. What, because they passed me a canapé at the last shindig we were at together?
Like it's your crush in 6th grade. Don't say that. I like Robby.
Just
I like her.
All right, we're rising after this.